Welcome, everyone. This is Doug Crawford, and today we're speaking with an electrician from Georgia, and his name is Daniel. What we're going to try to do today is ask some questions that some younger people might be thinking about doing what you're doing for a living.
Yes, sir.
And I guess we'll start right there with, what led you to become an electrician?
Honestly, initially from about sixth grade up until about a month or two before I graduated high school, I wanted to go into electrical engineering. But in that process, I qualified for a couple of grants and everything, but I'd still be in debt. And I weighed my options between actually getting an electrical license versus getting an electrical engineering degree. And there's a lot more potential in getting your license than getting your engineering degree. So I wound up going that route. And since it is in all 50 states, I know at least in Georgia, another thing that really sparked my interest was FFA has a career development event of electrical wiring. And I started doing that in ninth grade, and it really sparked my interest. Funny enough, sparked my interest. And it just stayed there to the point to where I love what I do.
Nice. So then how did you get started being an electrician? How did that begin? What's that story?
Very similar to what I just was with the FFA. My ag teacher had a previous student that he had graduated and started his own electrical company doing airport lighting and site lighting. And right when I graduated, I went to work for him for about 4.5 years, traveling all over the Southeast doing that. He put me through 3 years of school. We went through the IEC, which is, I don't want to take away from yours, but that got me to where I started learning a lot more.
No, go ahead. What is the IEC? We're trying to promote kids.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have any school affiliation. We just want kids to learn. So IEC is
independent electrical contractors. Essentially,
okay.
If even the company I currently work at, Pat Murphy Electric, they're members, and being a member of the IEC, it's kind of the opposite of the union. It's really good where I live, maybe up north in New York, the union may be better.
Right.
But at least here, it's a really good route to go. It's a 4-year apprenticeship, and they start with the basics and put you through the rest of them. It's 9 times out of 10, your companies either pay for it or they'll have a reimbursement program for you.
Right. And go ahead.
Yes, sir. But it was really great. You graduate with technically, Georgia does not have a journeyman card. We have master electricians and then just electricians. But through the IEC, you can get your journeyman card that's actually registered by the U.S. Department of Labor. So I can take that card and go to California and work for the same qualifications or have the same qualifications.
Nice. And so when you went to school, were you literally at a trade school, or?
They have different ways. For 3 years of my apprenticeship, I did online. You meet 1 to 2 days a week. I think they may have a shorter program that I think works 2 days a week, but mine was 1 day a week. You get your 8,000 hours. I believe it was 8,000 hours of classroom time. And then you have to record your on the job hours as well. And that's what gives you your final diploma.
Gotcha.
Yes. So they have options for people that have, very rigorous work schedules or anything like that to actually get them to the point they need to be to.
Nice. And so you did talk briefly there about licensing. So now you're an electrician, or?
Yes, sir.
Is your goal to gain further specialization or accreditation?
Yes, sir. Like I said, currently I have the Journeyman Card through the IEC, but my next step is, of course, getting my master's electrical license for the state of Georgia. I'm currently trying to get set up to go do that. It's a very difficult test, but thankfully, again, the IEC actually offers practice courses, or you can go in there and they'll teach you, certain things that'll help you get your license, because it has a very low first-time pass rate. But when you take those classes, your chances go up exponentially.
Okay, very good.
For our state, it's an 8-hour test.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
So can you tell us what some of the most important skills you learned going through this process and training?
Oh, that's a great question. To me, I caught on to electrical really quickly. Like I said, I technically started when I was about 14, learning about the trade and getting into it through the FFA programs and all. And once I got into the IEC, it was really interesting to figure out, because they go a lot more in depth. They get into transformers and everything else. I don't do that a whole lot because I'm residential, but even being in a trade, it helps you in more aspects than just one. I won't lie to you. With what I do, I'm a service electrician in houses. 3 years ago when I started, I wasn't bad at communication, but I really didn't like talking to people. I wasn't much of a people person, but I grew as a person there. You work with people, you become more confident in yourself, because straight out of high school, I was a very, very shy, timid, not necessarily timid, but I kept to myself and I really didn't make much of a fuss about anything. But being in a trade, it gives you instant gratification when you get skills. You can see it when you flip a switch, a light comes on. If you put in a receptacle, when you plug it in and it starts working or anything of that nature, you get that instant satisfaction from it. And I think that's one of the best things about the trade.
Okay. And so what would you say was the biggest challenge you had during your training?
The schoolwork was not hard. Finding the time to do it was.
Okay.
It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of willpower to get those things done. And being out of town and traveling like I was, it was difficult. You learn about things that you've never heard about before. Even now, I don't work with three-phase a whole lot, but you learn about short circuiting and everything of that nature that's just completely foreign, as opposed to there's really straightforward concepts in electrical wiring. White goes to the silver terminal, power goes to the brass terminal. Those are easy. But when you go beyond that into the electrical theory, when I first started hearing about that, it was very foreign, very difficult. But once you get your head wrapped around it, the possibilities are endless as far as how much fun you can have with it.
Okay, great. So you've been doing this a few years now. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about becoming an electrician in Georgia?
Honestly, it's one of the most rewarding things I've done. I would just keep your head on straight, make sure you do it, get into a good company that has the program to send you through an apprenticeship. Don't waste your time. If you're from there's a lot of small towns in Georgia where they may not be affiliated with anything that you could go. I mean, you can go to a tech school or anything like that, but make sure you get your credentials, because you can work for 20 years in the trade. And if you do not have those credentials, you really have no proof that you've done anything other than your knowledge and skill, which does count for something. But having that piece of paper and having everything to back up your word is very helpful with companies now. And they're looking for people 100%.
Okay. Is there like a certain attribute that you think that if someone said, hey, I'm graduating high school here, what are some of the attributes that you think that a good electrician would have?
One, high school attributes.
No, just your attributes coming into, I'm a high school student.
Yes,
and I say, hey, I'm thinking about it, but do I have to be good at math? Do I, you have to be good with your hands, that kind of thing. Is there some attributes that
I would say a strong work ethic is probably the best, because no matter where you start at in the trade, a lot of the times you start on a shovel. I stayed on one for probably about a year, but once you get past it and you stay dedicated, you'll get to the point to where you can start running crews. Anything else, math skills are helpful, because there's honestly not a lot of mathematics in your day-to-day. There's apps out there that help you with it, don't get me wrong, but you have to have some form of math skill to get into it, communication skills, and forethought to be able to look at something. You can learn how to read plans and everything else, but if you're a person that, like myself, I can look at something and almost build the job in my head before I ever do it. And if you can do that, you'll excel at being an electrician, because there's so many fun ways you can get it done. There's always more than one way to skin a cat. And if you can visualize it and do it, it makes the job much easier.
Okay. And you talked earlier about getting self gratification, when the light switch goes on. Is there a project that you've worked on that said, hey, I was part of that, or that you look proudly at? Or
Yes, sir. My most current, I've got one that's a little neater, but most current, and being an electrician is a progressive science. You don't start off being great. when I started off in electrical service, I could change a panel. I could go in, I'd have to cut a little drywall to get it in and out because that's just how I thought it had to be done. And then as you start thinking and start perfecting your craft and your trade, I can now go into a house and change a panel out and it looks like I've never been there. I don't have to cut the drywall. I can pop it in and out. But another one was my first company I worked for. I love what I do now. Don't get me wrong. My company's phenomenal. But the old guy I used to work for, he was great as well. And airport lighting, you have to set it up perfect. It has to be in a straight line. It has to be right, and it has to be tight. And when you turn a regulator on at the end of the day and you just see a straight row of lights, it's phenomenal. We worked on the Augusta Regional Jetport in North Georgia, the Raleigh Executive Jetport. I mean, I worked all over the Southeast on these things, and it's a phenomenal thing when you get done and you can step back and be like, I did that.
Nice.
And
Nice.
you think of anything better.
Great. I guess I have one final question here for you. So how do you stay up to date on latest codes and things that are constantly changing in your profession?
Yes, sir. The code updates every 3 years. Different jurisdictions adopted at different rates. Usually Georgia is a year behind. So now we went from the 2023 and it got adopted in 2024. It's different across the nation. There's some jurisdictions that are still on 2007 because everything in the code falls back to the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction. So when you have new iterations of code or you have anything like that, again, I'll have to fall back to the IEC. They have continuing education courses. You can teach yourself because code doesn't really change it doesn't change a lot. They add to it. There may be new exceptions. There may be new ways of doing it, but the code generally stays the same. They just add more. Like from 2017 to 2020, arc fault protection went up in houses to where at first it was in bedrooms, then it was required throughout the whole house virtually. The 2023, it delved really deep into ground fault protection. So you can do continuing education classes to get those, or you can just buy the code book and go back through and read it.
Okay. Well, I guess any final comments you'd like to make to anyone who might want to be an electrician?
Honestly and truly, at this point in life or this point in the trades, it has become extremely necessary that people join. College is great for some people, but the money's there to be made if you go into a trade and people are hiring for it, because it's not dying necessarily, but if you're needing a job and you want a career that you can build yourself in and become a master of, it's a great time to get into it. People are needing it. People are hiring and they're paying really good money for it. And you don't have to accrue any debt to do it.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And, just look for this video on our website.
I was going to ask you if you could send that to me because I'd like to look into it.
Absolutely. I'll send you a link once it's up. And thanks again for joining us. And we'll see you next time with our next interview. Thanks, Daniel, and goodbye.